रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा गिरिधारी राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि जय विश्वपाद ब्रह्मंस प्रवचकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद लभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत संप्रभुपाद की नामाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की प्रेम से कुछ कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्रद्वत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की श्री वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की श्री गंगा माई यमुना माई की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की युग धर्म हरिनाम संकीर्तन की समवेत भक्त वृंद की all glorious multiverse, all glorious multiverse, all glorious. Hare Krishna, we'll continue reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and we'll just continue from where we left yesterday. So, Bombay, October 1970. Responding to Srila Prabhupada's request for more disciples to join him in India, a group of 20 American devotees traveled to Brussels and took an inexpensive flight aboard a propeller-driven craft to Bombay. At the airport, while the devotees were wondering where they should go, Mr. Kailash Seksaria, a wealthy Bombay businessman and nephew of Mr. Dhandharia, approached them with a letter from Prabhupada. When Mr. Seksaria had arranged for several cars and he escorted the devotees to his home in an affluent Bombay residential area on Marine Drive. He fed them and provided them with living quarters. 2 days later, a telegram arrived informing the devotees and the host that Prabhupada would be arriving the next day. Prabhupada arrived at the Bombay airport and after an enthusiastic reception, rode with Mr. Seksaria to his home. Marine Drive runs along the seashore and the houses lining in belong to very rich. Mr. Seksaria's residence was 7 stories, and he offered Srila Prabhupada the first floor, with its large rooms and overlooking the Arabian Sea. Bombay, Prabhupada said, was India's most materialistic city. It was the nation's movie capital and the city where, more than in any other Indian city, the people wore Western dress. The gateway to India, it boasted the most industries, the most businesses, the most billboards. It was a cosmopolitan melting pot of cultures and religions, but had none of the Naxalite terrorism of Calcutta or the heavy political atmosphere of New Delhi. Nor did it have the aristocratic families who worshipped Lord Chaitanya and his Sankirtan movement, but it had its own advantages for preaching. Prabhupada said, it was a city of wealth, with many pious citizens who were intelligent and quick to adopt a good idea. He predicted Bombay would be a favorable city for Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada's first Bombay preaching engagement was at a gathering of sadhus, a pandal in an open field just a few blocks from Mr. Seksaria's home. Prabhupada's disciples had also been invited and they arrived several hours before Prabhupada. The era of Indian sadhus sitting on stage in long rows startled the devotees. Some of the sadhus were bearded, some had shaven headed, some with long matted hair and holding tridents, some covered with ashes, some adorned with beads and clay markings. The devotees were amazed, and many of the sadhus, on seeing the white-skinned Vaishnavas, were also amazed. While the devotees came on stage and began the kirtan, the audience responded by clapping in rhythm and chanting. Afterward, On the advice of Mr. Texeria, the devotees took the kirtan onto the streets, and many in the audience followed. We'll finish over here. Actually, I can continue a little bit further and finish off. That evening, the devotees returned to the pandal with Prabhupada. Prabhupada sat on a raised platform, and his disciples sat at his feet. After having three of his disciples speaking English, Prabhupada spoke in Hindi, while the audience of more than 500 listened silently. After his lecture, he came down from the platform, and a crowd gathered around him, touching his feet and following him to his car. When Prabhupada heard from his disciples of the spontaneous kirtan through the streets of Bombay, he said they should go to the busiest bazaars and chant daily. So they did. Wherever large numbers of people gathered, the devotees would go and chant. They were strong, youthful, exuberant, and faithful, and they would chant in the streets for 3 or 4 hours each day. Although Prabhupada did not physically go into the streets chanting with his disciples, he was with them by his instructions and by his presence before they went out in the morning and when they returned in the evening. They were chanting because he had told them to, and they knew that chanting was the natural activity of the soul. Everyone should chant. The devotees knew that at the end of life, they would go back home, back to Godhead. And better than that, at the end of the day, they would go back to Marine Drive to Prabhupada, who would smile and encourage them. So Prabhupada ki. Bombay is now very much developed, and there are more temples now compared to one when we had in the early days. We had many temples in Bombay, so that's the mercy of Prabhupada, greatness. We'll now move on to Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we'll be reciting from Canto 5, Chapter 11, Verse 1. Before that, I'll just quickly read the very first overview of the chapter. In this chapter, the Brahman Jada Bharat instructs Maharaj Rahugana in detail. He tells the king, "You're not very experienced, yet you pose yourself as a learned person because you are very proud of your knowledge. Although a person who is on the transcendental platform does not care for social behavior that sacrifices spiritual advancement, social behavior comes within the jurisdiction of karma kanda, material benefit. No one can spiritually advance by such activities. The conditioned soul is always overpowered by the modes of material nature, and consequently, he is simply concerned with material benefits and auspicious and inauspicious material things. In other words, the mind, which is the leader of the senses, is absorbed in material activities life after life. Thus, he continuously gets different types of bodies and suffers miserable material conditions. On the basis of mental concoction, social behavior has been formulated. If one's mind is absorbed in these activities, he certainly remains conditioned within the material world. According to different opinions, there are 11 or 12 mental activities which can be transformed into hundreds and thousands. A person who is not Krishna conscious is subject to all these mental concoctions and is thus governed by the material energy. The living entity who is free from mental concoctions attains the platform of pure spirit soul devoid of material contamination. There are two types of living entities, Jivatma and Paramatma, the individual soul and the supersoul. That supreme soul, in his ultimate realization, is Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. He enters into everyone's heart and controls the living entity in his different activities. He is therefore the supreme shelter of all living entities. One can understand the supreme soul and one's position in relationship with him when one is completely freed from unwanted association of ordinary men. In this way, one can become free, fit to cross the ocean of science. The cause of conditional life is attached to the external energy. One has to conquer these mental concoctions. Unless one does so, he will not be freed from material anxieties. Although mental concoctions have no value, the influence is still very formidable. No one should neglect to control the mind. If one does, the mind becomes so powerful that one immediately forgets his real position, forgetting that he is an eternal servant of Krishna and that service to Krishna is his only business. One is doomed by material nature to serve the subjects of senses. One should kill mental concoctions by the sword of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. Guru Krishna Prasadipaya Bhakti Latabi. We'll recite the verse for chapter 11, text 1. Brahmano Vacha Ako Vidaha Ko Vidavadavadan Vadasyato Nati Vidam Varishtaha Nasurayo Hi Vyavaharaminam Tattva Marshena Sahamanananti Brahmano Vacha Ako Vidaha Ko Vidavadavadan Vadasyato Nati Vidam Varishtaha Nasurayo Hi Vyavaharaminam Tattvavamarshena Sahamananti. Brahmana Vacha Ako Vidaha Ko Vidavadavadan Vadasyato Nati Vidam Varishtaha Nasurayo Hi Vyavaharam Enam Tattvavamarshena Saha Mananti. Prabhu. Brahmano Vacha Ako Vidaha Ko Vidavadavadan Vadasyato Nati Vidam Varishtaha Nasurayo Hi Vyavaharam Enam Tattvavamarshena Saha Mananti. Brahmano Vacha Ako Vidaha Ko Vidavadadan Vadasyato Nati Vidam Varishtaha Nasurayo Hi Vyavaharam Enam. Tattvavamarshena sahamanant. And anyone else would like to try? No? Mataji? Brahmano vacha akovidah kovidah vadavadan vadasyato nati vidam varishtaha nasurayo hi vyavaharamenam tattvavamarshena sahamananti. Brahmano vacha kovidah kovidah vadavadan vadasyato nati vidam varishtaha nasurayo hi vyavaharamenam tattvavamarshena sahamananti. Brahmano vacha akovidah kovidah vadavadan vadasyato nati vidam varishtaha nasurayo hi vyavaharamenam tattvavamarshena sahamananti. Word by word translation. Brahmana vacha, the Brahman said, akovidaha, without having experience, kovidavada vadan, words used by experienced person. Vadasi, you are speaking. Atho, therefore. Na, not. Ati, vidam, of those who are very experienced. Varishtaha, the most important. Na, not. Suraya, such intelligent persons. He, indeed. Vyavaharam, mundane and social behavior. Enam, this tattva of the truth. Avamarshena, fine judgment by intelligence. Saha, with. Amananti, discuss. Translation by Sri Prabhupada. The Brahman Jarabharat said, my dear king, although you are not at all experienced, you are trying to speak like a very experienced man. Consequently, you cannot be considered an experienced person. An experienced person does not speak the way you are speaking about the relationship between a master and a servant, or about material pains and pleasures. These are simply external activities. Any advanced, experienced man, considering the absolute truth, does not speak in this way. Purport by His Divine Krishna Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna similarly chastised Arjuna. Ashochayan anavashochas tvam pragyavadam bhashase. While speaking learned words, you are lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. Bhagavad Gita 2.11. Similarly, among people in general, 99% try to talk like experienced advisors, but they actually devoid of spiritual knowledge, and are therefore like inexperienced children speaking nonsensically. Consequently, these words cannot be given any importance. One has to learn from Krishna or his devotee. If one speaks on the basis of his experience, that is, on the basis of spiritual knowledge, one's words are valuable. Or at the present moment, The entire world is full of foolish people. Bhagavad Gita describes that these people are mudras. They're trying to rule human society because they are devoid of spiritual knowledge. The entire world is in its chaotic situation. To be released from these material conditions, one has to become Krishna conscious and take lessons from an exalted personality like Jadabharata, Lord Krishna, and Kapil Dev. That is the only way to solve the problems of material life. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Guru Shri Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धुजगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धवेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So here Jadabhadra is telling Maharaj King Rahugan that you are not at all experienced, but you're speaking like an experienced person. And this is very much true in our day-to-day life. You know, a lot of times we come across people, you know, who give us advices, even in the material world, right? You have people who speak about giving you advice on certain matters, but they have no experience of that. They basically give you advice because that's what they've read, or what they think, or what they've heard from another person, but they haven't experienced themselves. So in some sense, that their words of no value. You know, we have all these people who are giving, wanted to motivational speakers, you can say, or you know, those sort of people who try to give you advice, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and this and that. And a lot of times, their words are just full of word jugglery. It's just full of flowery words that have no value. You know? So a lot of times, their words are not to be considered of any importance, unless Prabhupada mentions, unless one is Krishna conscious. Only that person's words are of great value, because this person is experienced and well situated in the science of Krishna consciousness. You know? Remember, some time back there was a seminar on the art of speaking by Bhakti Samrit Maharaj. And he was talking about the importance of speaking, how to speak and when to speak. A lot of times we speak unnecessarily, and that has just no value. He was saying that for us to be able to, it's important for us to be careful of what we speak and how we speak, and most importantly, do not speak on relation to others. A lot of times we have this tendency to speak about others, you know, behind their back, and because we get a lot of rasa out of all of this, you know, what's going with that person, what's happening in this person's life, we are so much absorbed, we absorb ourselves into the person's life as if we control the life, as if uh, we care. Real care is you showing compassion if the person is going through difficult situation in life. But a lot of times we don't. We actually enjoy, you know, hearing about someone's going through difficult times. Oh, tell me more about it. Tell me more. Isn't it? That's human nature. And this is and the devotees are not immune from that. Devotees also, we also do that from time to time. This is one of the things we have to be very careful of. What we say and how we say it. You know, we can't make someone's life better. We should make it worse. We should develop compassion. You know, and how do we develop compassion? When we are fixed in our sadhana, when we are chanting nicely. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this matter says that when we speak about others, that is very, very detrimental to our spiritual life, especially about devotees, because that becomes grama katha, and that doesn't help us in our spiritual journey. In fact, it pulls us down, from a path of progression. So this is very, very important, and that's why we hear Rupa Goswami mentions in Upayashamrita, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jippa Vegam, Udarpastha Vegam. One of the most important is the Vacho Vegam, controlling your speech, which is why, we chant this prayer for prasadam, Sharira Vidyavajal, and then there it says, Jivve File Vishaya Shagore. The jiv is in the middle of these teeth, and it's so powerful that whatever it says, it can destroy things. It can make things for people. It can destroy things, relationships, and those kinds of things. So controlling the tongue is very, very important. And when we chant very nicely, attentive chanting, then what happens is that we develop compassion. We also develop vak siddhi. Vak siddhi means that whatever you say becomes true. In the sense that, so you get it from Krishna. As a devotee, pure devotee gets vak siddhi because what it means when they say, I bless you. So through the blessing, Krishna makes sure that the blessing comes true. So the tongue is one of the most difficult part of the body to control. But when we are able to control, we can speak nice things. Our tongue should be all the time remembering chanting the holy names of the Lord, speaking on Hari Katha, not Grama Katha, not talking about nonsense activities. We are doing that, then we need to look and introspect, look at ourselves, how are we progressing? Are we making progress spiritually? We all do that, and I think it's a great lesson for us. Then we need to cut down and ultimately stop on those kinds of things. We will definitely not make any progress. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very, very emphasizes in this point. Do not talk about devotees. We have this example from Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. Srila Prabhupada, during his time, he used to speak negatively about his god brothers. And that's because Prabhupada wanted to protect the disciples from going astray. Prabhupada did not mean that really mean that his god brothers were, no one, not worthy of association. But Prabhupada at that time, because he was setting up this movement, he did not want anyone to be to take over or being the line of authority. Prabhupada always wanted him to be the line of authority. That is, Srila Giriraj Maharaj explains very nicely about this whole situation, about what Prabhupada was saying in the early days and what Prabhupada said in the final days. Prabhupada, when he met his godbrothers in his final days, when his godbrothers to come and see him, Prabhupada was very apologetic. He said, "I'm extremely sorry. My sincere apologies. I used to criticize you all, speak negative about you all, but that was not my intention." He said, "My intention was because I wanted to protect my disciples. I wanted my disciples to only listen to me. I didn't want them to get confused. And because I had worked on them, they needed to listen to me, and so Prabhupada was very apologetic. But a lot of times we still end up from time to time we hear devotees speaking about negatively about the Gaudiya Math and the Gaudiya. In fact, we shouldn't speak about ill of anyone. What to speak about devotees? We should not. Sometimes we see this mentality that we cannot speak ill of ISKCON devotees only, but we are free. We have full license to speak about outsiders, irrespective. That we don't have the license. We should never ever try to speak ill of other devotees. Devotees outside of ISKCON and people in general. We should be appreciative of everyone. If we develop this appreciation that I'm so grateful that I have taken shelter under Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. I've taken shelter of my Guru Maharaj. I've taken shelter of the devotees. And how can I make my life successful? By serving them. By serving devotees, we become even more advanced. We advance spiritually. So, we have to be very, very careful. We should not just be a bit naive in what we say or how we speak. Just be gentle. If I know there'll be times where you might not get on with someone. Natural, right? We may not get along with someone because of some past experiences. But we should somehow the other develop, at least appreciate. Okay, that person's a devotee. Appreciate mentally. You might not associate with that person fully, but at least appreciate that this person is somehow the other as a devotee. I have seen that it's very difficult to make someone a devotee, but it's very easy to lose someone. And one bad interaction with devotees sometimes can actually make the person leave, especially if the person is not spiritually advanced. We should never ever do something that will make devotee leave, leave movement. That is the most painful thing that one can experience, is having someone go back in the association non-devotees and start becoming doing all sorts of nonsense activities. That's why it's very important for us to listen to the instruction of Srila Prabhupada and the spiritual master, who are much more experienced, who are much more advanced than us. In this case, Jara Bharat is pretending, he's saying that as if he is very advanced, but he's not. There's one story I heard about one devotee who asked one of his senior devotees to come and preach to his dad, because his dad was not very spiritual. So this devotee, very pakka devotee, he came and he was starting to give a class at person's house. And he was giving so many nice evidences from scriptures and everything. And the dad was there, was listening. this devotee was saying Krishna is the Supreme Person of Godhead because it's mentioned in the scriptures and so forth, and very nicely spoke about Krishna and his interaction with devotees and so forth. In the end, the dad, the devotee's father, he could not basically object to any of the points that was put forward by the devotee because they were all valid points. Now, despite that, he still wanted to argue. So he said, how do we know? How do we know that that Durga or Kali or Shiva or any one of them is not supreme? You've said it, but how do we know? How can we say that they may not? They may be the supreme person of Godhead. So his arguments were sort of dry, and he was like, nowhere trying to. Because he didn't have anything to prove. He was just putting forward dry arguments unnecessarily. And this is sometimes a case where people, they put in arguments for the sake of putting an argument, but there's no value. So it's very important that we listen to the spiritual master on what he says, and the acharyas, what they've explained. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very nicely explained in his purpose on this, and even Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this matter as well, that we have to take shelter of the devotees and serve them, and those who do not accept Krishna, the words of Krishna, Prabhupada mentions here, are mudhas. If one speaks on the basis of his experience, that is, on the basis of spiritual knowledge, one's words are valuable. If one speaks on the basis of Shastra, then the words are valuable. But if someone just speaks for the sake of speaking, with just some dry arguments or some, flowery words with some word jugglery, it may sound very sweet. It may sound really nice. It may say, oh, wow, this person speaks so nicely. But it has no value. So we must listen from the right source, from the spiritual personalities like Prabhupada, Sukta Goswami, and hear from devotees, senior devotees who have advanced in spiritual life. And like I said, chanting very nicely, chanting attentively, we will be able to develop that taste, and we will be able to control our tongue. We'll be able to control our senses. Unless until we control our senses, we will become servants of our senses. So we should not be trying to act like King Rahugan, who was trying to put forward arguments and so forth, but they were just inexperienced words. So Prabhupada is mentioning here that people who are not spiritually advanced, they are actually ruling the human society. They're trying to rule the human society, and because they are devoid of spiritual knowledge, the entire world is in chaotic condition, which is very true. When you have a leader who is spiritually knowledgeable, who's tattva-gyani, then that person can make the right decisions. Well, how can they uplift the lives of the citizens? How they can make the citizens Krishna conscious. I think in Manipur there was a king after Mahaprabhu's Mahaprabhu. There was one king who actually became a devotee of Lord Chaitanya, and through his influence, the entire kingdom became Vaishnava. They became a Vaishnava kingdom at one point, whole of Manipur. But after independence, and of course before independence as well, then the influx of people from Burma and other places, they started destroying the culture in Manipur. But if you go to Manipur, you still find Vaishnav culture there. Very nice traditional Vaishnav culture that is still being practiced, but unfortunately through the influence of politicians and all sorts of change in um, what do you call it? The structure of the society there, things have there's been a decline in that culture. Srila Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj came from that society, came from that background, Manipur. And because he was part of that background, it was easy for him to take up Krishna consciousness because he had their family came from the Vaishnava background. But if you don't, if you're not Krishna conscious, then you can mislead other people. That's why we have to be very careful who we listen to, who we take guidance from. Like I said, there's so many people out there today who are actually pretending to be as if they know how to get someone out of the miserable condition. But can they free us? Can they free us from the cycle of birth and death? Can they deliver us from material hellish condition? No. Because for them, they will tell you how to become successful, how to become free from poverty and all sorts of things, like all the material conditions, and how to become successful materially, how to become happier materially, how to enjoy materially. But none of them actually about how to become Krishna conscious, how to become spiritually advanced. You know? So I think I'm gonna finish here. Anyone's gonna comments, questions? When a non-devotee talks lies, what is that question? Someone's put a good question. Chat. When a non-devotee talks lies about a devotee to other devotee, what should a devotee do? When a non-devotee talks about lies about a devotee to other devotee, what should we do? Good question. What should we do? Yes, there's a question here. When a non-devotee talks lies about a devotee to another devotee, what should we do? We should not just blindly accept what the person says. Because tendency is that when we hear, we develop the perception, oh, the person speaking about that person, that means this person is saying must be true. We should, to be honest, really don't get into it. Just fluff it off and just don't care, because who are we to, think about it? Because by someone planting a seed in you about negative seed in you about that person, you develop a perception about the devotee, and then next time you see the devotee, you start seeing negatively about the devotee. This has happened many times. A devotee comes in brand new, knows nothing about so and so, and then the next person the person meets, or a friend of me the person meets, says, be careful with the person, you don't hang around with the person, or that person is so and so, or this and that. That person starts develops a perception about the devotee, and then basically starts seeing negatively. By even negatively thinking about the devotee, you're doing an offense. So better off just say, well, I personally think, just ignore it and just don't care. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, correction is very important, and this is one of the points I was going to come to. When, say, for example, someone speaks about so and so, and I think Socrates, someone said, three filters about, whatever you said, how is that going to benefit me, or how it's going to benefit you, whatever you're saying to me about so and so. Does it have any value? Does it have any benefit? Then I don't care, and you shouldn't care either. Secondly, I don't remember all the steps, but there's definitely three filters. You need to always filter what you hear. If it doesn't have any value to you, ignore it. But at the same time, put it back onto the person's telling you. Tell me, by telling this to me about this so and so, how will you benefit from this? Tell me. Put that person on the spot. Are you going to get any value out of this? And in that way, indirectly, we're actually correcting them. So, the importance of why. Why are we talking about this? Can you not talk anything better than this? Because you'll have situations in life where you have non-devotees try to create divisions between devotees by sparking something like this, an unnecessary conversation. So we have to be very careful. We have to, at the same time, protect the devotees as well. We have to give up back to the devotees. You know what I mean? We should not always accept what someone says. But yes, correction. We have to always make sure we somehow they're the corrected person, but correct in such a way that the person doesn't feel offended. You could say, I don't know, this is something I've learned. It may be of use or maybe not. Well, say, you know what, you speak very nicely. I really like the way you speak. You are a very good person. Blah blah blah. Just one recommendation I have for you is that maybe just forget about all this nonsense things or maybe just don't worry about all these things. Unless you have seen it, unless you've done it, and if that person has gone or done something wrong, maybe that's his karma. He'll bear it. Why you worry about it? Why do you want unnecessary bad karma on yourself too? Because the moment we have to tell me that if the moment you start speaking ill of someone, you taking that person's bad karma on yourself, and you actually dishing out your punyas to that person. That's why it's said that when we speak ill of someone, we're taking that person's bad karma. So, explain in such a way that the person will not get offended, but at the same time appreciate that you are giving a nice recommendation. That let's just not worry. And if you show that you have no interest in it, then the person will not proceed further. But the moment you lend your ear, tell me more. What have you seen? What have you heard? What do you know about it? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. That you are becoming more thirsty, wanting to listen more and more and more. That means you become part of it. That's right. You become part of this whole conversation, and you become entangled in this whole relationship, into this negativity. So sometimes better to just say, "That's it. I mean, I don't have time." You can just say something like that. And I'm sorry, I'm running late, or I need to go somewhere. I don't have time. That's a nice way of saying, we'll talk about this later. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't have time. I mean, I would have loved to talk to you about this, but not now. I've got something else to talk about. If you have anything better to tell me, tell me. Something like that. So it's just a matter of how you have to see the person, you have to see the situation. And then you have to deal with the person and the situation accordingly, depending who is speaking to you. Chastising when it comes to devotees, saying something, you just say, I'm sorry, let's just not talk about this. We also have to be very careful how we deal with the devotees. With the devotees, we have to deal with care. That also comes with, in the same way, just like when we are dealing with a child, parents dealing with a child. You cannot be abrupt. You cannot be very harsh. You have to deal in such a way that the person is receptive, taking on board what you've said, and at the same time is willing to associate with you and grow spiritually. I mean, our goal is to help someone grow spiritually. Does it make sense? Yes. That's right. That's right. If we behave the same way that the other person is behaving with us, then there's definitely no difference between us and that person. That's right. So a lot of times we have this tendency that I'm superior or I'm senior. I have the full rights to chastise someone below me, someone you know new who's just coming to. That shouldn't be the case. Respect whether it's senior or not. You should treat everyone equally with respect. If you give respect, you get respect. Respect is not something that we can demand. So we must always offer everyone, irrespective, whether they're devotees or not devotees, offer everyone respect. And that shows because a devotee will always offer, um, like respect to everyone. Because we see everyone as Paramatma, every living entity. We will see everyone as a servant of Krishna. The only difference is that that person is not aware of the relationship, and we have somehow realized the relationship. That's the only difference. And one day, if we treat them, we respect them, we honor them, give them, we say nice words to them, one day they will become, they will appreciate, they will actually appreciate that Krishna conscious is so nice, that people are so loving, so caring, appreciative, and all of that. And sometimes people's heart melt just by that. Absolutely. And a lot of times, how you react, how you behave towards another person is actually a reflection of your own self, of your own consciousness, what consciousness you are in. That means you have not, if you are angry, you are, over on someone, that means you have not controlled your own anger yet at the moment. We have to understand that everyone is living entity. Everyone is a child, of Supreme Personal Godhead. They're all servants of Supreme, and we are all, um, uh, and in that way, we should offer our respect, speak nicely, appreciate. Yes, Prabhu. That's right. A lot of times we actually see a lot of negative sides of things of a person than the positive side of persons. We should always see, okay, out of all these negatives you think in there, what are the good things? Obviously, a person is doing some service in the temple or doing service, serving somehow or the other. That is the biggest, positive thing I would say. And those are positive things we should always look at. We shouldn't be like uh, flies spreading dirt around. We should be like bumblebees taking nectar out of flowers. So look at all the good points of a person. No one is perfect, and neither am I. No one is perfect. Right? We all have some negative qualities, but what we can do is, we should always see, how can we be of service to the devotee? How can we be of service to that person? How can I help that person, um, somehow the other, whatever the way I can, spiritually. That should be our goal. Rather than judging on that person, oh, that person has done this person has done that, this person done that. I mean, I've been through some very difficult times in my life myself, and I've experienced it personally, what it is like when devotees turn against you and they do all sorts of nonsense things against you. But from that, personally, my experience is that you grow, you develop lessons, you learn from a lot of things from that. That then you realize who is actually your well-wisher and who's not. Who do you need to associate with and who should keep a distance, right? Of course, amongst devotees, you have to also figure out who do you need to associate, who will actually engage you in spiritually more. So from that you have to also differentiate and hang around with those devotees who will motivate you spiritually. Among devotees, there are different categories. You need to choose those devotees who will motivate you without any judgment. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, definitely. I mean, as you advance spiritually, you grow and then you basically develop no taste in speaking ill of anyone. You know? Sometimes people might say, argue, and they say, oh, Prabhupada spoke ill about his god brothers. And they take the example and then they continue doing the same thing. But first of all, we don't have the adhikar to speak about Prabhupada's god brothers. It was a relationship Prabhupada had with his god brother, and that's it. We have no adhikar to speak ill of anyone, and it's 50 years. Prabhupada's god brothers have all gone. Doesn't mean that we continue speaking ill about them. I mean, I remember some devotees still continue speaking ill about Prabhupada's god brothers. They say this, that, the Prabhupada. But on the other hand, Prabhupada speaks some very nice things about Prabhupada's his own god brothers. He spoke very highly of Sridhar Maharaj, Pramod Puri Maharaj, and a few others, Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj, and they helped Prabhupada in some way or the other. So we should never judge. That was a relationship Prabhupada was trying to, through that past, and Prabhupada was still trying to explain who's actually a well-wisher, who's not. But that doesn't mean you go and start looking negatively or down on that person. And we should be ready to apologize if we make mistakes. If we realize that we have offended someone, be ready to apologize. And there's nothing wrong with that. By apologizing to that person, you actually offloaded a lot of things from yourself, that you might be bothering you. That I may have offended the devotee and this and that. Yes, sometimes situation arises and things, and we may say something harsh to someone. But even if you are older in age or you are advanced, I mean, you are a senior devotee, you should not think about me bowing down or asking for forgiveness from someone who's younger than me or someone who's subordinate to me. You don't look at other factors. Think about how you can beg for forgiveness and just move on. But sometimes we have this tendency, if I'm like, for example, right, a father will never want to go and say sorry to his child because he has this ego that why should I ask for forgiveness from my child, from my son? But on the contrary, if the father, knowing, realizing that he's made a mistake in relation to his son, if he says, "I'm sorry, my son, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have said that," the son will develop more better, improve the relationship. Say, "Oh, my dad is so nice, he if he realizes mistakes, he always begs forgiveness." So we should never shy away from doing that. We should always be ready to beg for forgiveness and move on. All right, I think we'll stop over here. Thank you so much, Prabhus. Thank you, Mataris. Hare Krishna. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.